All right, and welcome back to another We Are the GMs. This is Cowboys Gameplan. I'm your host, Slayer. I got Mike next to us. We're going to be continuing our series today about breaking down the depth chart, looking through all the defensive positions and transitioning to the offensive side. But first, before we do all that, we're going to speak about just some Cowboys land drama. Even though it is January 2nd, as we're filming this at 5:30, it feels like we're in the middle of the season or middle of the off season, even if you want to count it that way, trying to figure out how we're making the news, how we are the top stories everywhere. Because, like Jerry Jones said, it's a soap opera 365 days a year. So let's kick it off with Trevon Diggs. As you Cowboys fans know, Trevon Diggs was let go before the game this week. There's been a lot of dispute about whether it was his rehab, whether it's his performance, whether has he been living up to his contract, whether it was, has he been not a good culture fit for the Dallas Cowboys, as Brian Schottenheimer in his first year, wants to try to change those kinds of things. As Trevon Diggs gets let go, he gets claimed on the waiver wire, of course, by the Packers. I don't think anyone is shocked by that claim. I thought maybe the Bears would go out there and get him. I thought maybe any playoff team could use him. I think those were the best teams to go get him. But as we know, the Packers grabbed him. Mike, kind of walk me through it, man. Walk me through how you kind of assessed the Trevon Diggs situation, how you took the Trevon Diggs situation. I mean, walk me through all that. How you feel about it?
Yeah, definitely not surprised that he ends up a Packer. People probably saw that coming. Maybe thought it could happen.
Yeah.
I know me and you talked about it, and we weren't sure if anybody was going to pick up a cornerback who wasn't playing very well, or I don't know if that was intentionally or unintentionally. Kind of thought it might have been a long shot, but it makes total sense where he ended up and why he ended up there, and it almost seems like that was the plan all along. I do remember Mike Fisher saying earlier in the season that Trevon had put his Dallas home on the market and fully anticipated Trevon parting ways with the team at the end of this year.
Yep.
And, it's just one of those things when you put yourself and your wants and thoughts and needs and opinions before the team and, maybe show some, I don't know what word you would use, but show some disinterest, maybe even disrespect towards the team, it can cost you here,
Yeah.
And I think in the long run that just built up over time. And when you're not being a productive player, it starts to outweigh the good that you've contributed over time. And that's what happened here. And he got let go and moved on a little bit earlier than what we thought. So I'm definitely curious to see how he's going to perform as a Packer now that he's reunited with what I fully believe was what he wanted, from the jump. And now he's getting it. I think he was going to end up there no matter what. It just happened a little bit earlier, and I think they did him a favor in that fact.
Yeah, and I think that's where all the drama comes from this situation. I had put a tweet out, and if you don't follow us on X, we got our handles right below. Come check us out. I said I love Trevon Diggs. I own 2 of his jerseys. I love the number 7. That's what I wore when I was playing football in high school and all that. So I had like a awesome connection with him, especially after his All-Pro season in 2021, right? Kind of one of the things I pointed out was I think the timing of him being let go is what's creating all the drama, but he made $42 million and out of this new extension that he got. He played in only 21 of the 51 games, and especially this past year alone, he allowed a passer rating of 156.3. That's from the Next Gen Stats. And he just had a lot of reports with, like you just said, locker room issues, rehab issues, whether it's on the field, off the field. And I think kind of what set off the most was the Washington game. Obviously, that's probably the climax of this whole situation. I think him, Shoddy and all them wanting them to travel back. Everyone, whether we win or lose, we're going to do all the same thing. We're not going to make exceptions. And I think, like you said, when you are not living up to the ability that you can play to or that high level ability, your tolerance goes down. And I think a lot of people are saying this, but a lot of people are under the assumption that Trevon Diggs' play style is going down. Your tolerance comes down with it. Like George Pickens, the way he's played this year, he could probably be late to a meeting or two, and they're not really going to say much because they don't want to make him mad. But Trevon Diggs late to a meeting, hey, you're out for another 2 weeks. You know, you're not.
Mhm.
But if Trevon Diggs was 11 interceptions right now, like he was in 2021, you're late to a meeting. Come on, you're good. Get in here, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a business league that's driven off stats. Every profile, every website, even betting sports books, everything's based off stats. If you're not performing to the stats, no one really cares about if you're a culture guy or if you're like a high energetic guy. You have to put your stats on the field, and you have to find a way to continue that success. And if not, you're going to end up in a spot like Trevon. Now, here's what gets me. And, if I'm derailing the conversation here, that's okay. We let go of Trevon Diggs. He's washed. Quarterbacks burn him. All these highlights of him getting burnt in the past couple of years. And the first thing Packers fans want to do is say, "Oh, we just stole an all-pro corner. We stole this all-pro corner. Like we got Trevon Diggs. How could you let him go, Dallas?" And I'm like, really? That's what we're gonna get from y'all is
enjoy your 4 games next season with Trevon.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Or
that's about what he plays every year is 4 years.
I expect him to maybe, play a little bit better, but for them to say like we just let him walk, like what were you talking about?
We'll see later. I mean, it's one of those things where let's watch and see, And it's a double-edged sword though, because say he does go out there and he kills it. He's old Trevon. What does that say about him? He sold out his teammates?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly.
Just saying. So, or he goes out there and he looks like he's looked for us this year. And, he struggles to cut and break, and he gets outrun and he slips and he falls and, he does what he's going to do. It's going to be interesting to watch, but, we'll see.
Yeah. It definitely super interesting to watch. Kind of leading into like selling your teammates out. We'll kind of transition into it if you're done with Trevon. Let's talk about Micah Parsons versus the Cowboys fans.
Yes, that's really unfortunate, man, because everybody. Okay, so how you feel about Trevon is how I felt about Micah Parsons, right?
Okay.
I have my Micah Parsons jerseys. I was a big fan of his. I didn't believe that amongst all that we went through in training camp, I didn't really believe that he was going to be gone.
Yeah.
Until the table incident.
Oh, you're talking about in the preseason?
Yeah. When he laid on the table, and I was like, uh-oh.
That's not
because good. It was for the first time that it actually showed optically that he was also fed up, and despite his words about wanting to stay in Dallas, what he was delivering on the screen into the media directly opposed to that, right? And you remember the fans at training camp and even going to the beginning of the season were like, pay Micah. Everybody was on that bandwagon. We knew the value of the player.
Yeah.
We had no say in that trade.
Mm-mm.
But we're part of the y'all that he is expressing frustration towards. And that's just really unfortunate, because I think the Dallas Cowboy fanship has always been very supportive of him as a player, his podcast personally, and all that stuff. To now be included in the y'all that he's frustrated with, is how it is. But
yeah, and this whole situation started because Dan Rogers on X puts out some Pro Football Focus grades of Trevon Diggs over his whole entire career as a Cowboy, and all of a sudden he jumps in, and I'm reading it right here off X. Is I feel like at what point is there in trying to publicly disrespect someone? He's not representing the star anymore. Just give the man a farewell and wish him the best. I don't know why everything has to be negative every time a breakup happens. He's in a better situation right now. Trust me, bro's going to be great again. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with what Parsons said there. And I don't think there's any disrespect by what was going on with what he's putting out. Again, like I just said about the Trevon Diggs situation, this is a stat-driven league. This is a league that is based off of numbers, projections, the next-gen stats. I mean, well, of course, as fans, we're going to break that down because that's the only way we know how to cope or handle the situation outside of the stories we hear from our local team reporters or anybody who is close to the team.
Yeah,
You know?
we don't have inside knowledge. We have
Yeah,
what we see on the screen and what comes out in the numbers.
yeah, exactly. And so that's one of the things where I'm like, okay, Mike, I get it. You're trying to defend. You're trying to defend your guy. I get it. And then we get to the y'all want me to feel bad. Jerry Jones slandered my name to Cowboys media and national media for months, so I think I can react to comment if I want to. #respectfully. And it's like, why are you dragging it out? You're telling us to stop, but you're not representing it both ways. You want us as Cowboys fans to quit being negative, but you're gonna go out there and be just as negative. And I definitely think it was one of those things where I just don't. I don't know why the whole situation happened. I'm I think like you said, just laying on that
there's no
table
transparency in all this.
Yeah, there's
But it
no.
just from our perspective as fans, it doesn't look good because we don't know what happened behind closed doors, and that's cool. But we're not getting any information from anybody that explains why we've now lost Micah Parsons and Trevon Diggs, who were formerly part of the strongest parts of our defense.
Yeah.
And all we're seeing is, speculation and possibilities and rumors. So that's all we have to go off of as fans. And until somebody clears that up for us, we don't have that information.
So we got a question from the crowd here. I'll pull it up for you. Who took Trevon Diggs' spot? Who is going to take Trevon Diggs' spot as we look at it right now? Now, of course, we're about to head into the offseason. So who do you think kind of takes it for the moment with the depth chart we currently have?
Oh man, if we were playing right now, it would be Revel, but he's not going to play this weekend in New York. So I think that's the logical choice. It's going to be Bland and Revel, and unless we find another cornerback in free agency and draft, which we absolutely should. Definitely do that. I think they need to attack every defensive position they can in free agency so that we can optimize what we can get out of the draft as far as drafting the best player for the best position available instead of having to draft to finish a roster. And
you want to actually acquire talent and not just fill in spots so then you can say your roster.
100%. Right.
Totally makes sense. But yeah, I totally agree. I think when you're looking at it, it depends on how you want to frame the question. If you're looking at for tomorrow, I think you're just going to get a depth evaluation. They're going to dig deep in the bag. They're going to pull out the Josh Butlers of the world, the Kalen Carsons of the world, whoever can play.
Ready, Trequise.
Yeah, Bland's already, on IR. Ravel's been ruled out. They said that he had a little bit of a knee issue or something with his hamstring, something with a leg injury that popped up. But when you're looking at next year, currently at this moment, and we're about to actually get all into that here soon, you're probably looking at Bland and Ravel being your starting corners for next year.
Yeah, and then this weekend we'll probably get a combination of Carson, Reddy, Bridges, maybe Butler. I didn't look. I don't know if he's been activated or if he's on the roster at this point, but it'll be a rotation of the guys. Probably Carson and Bridges on the outside and Reddy continuing to play in the nickel like he's been. But
yeah. But all right. Well, let's unless you got anything else to say to the farewell of the 7-Eleven, we can get actually into what we're
closed.
Here for today.
Yeah. 7-Eleven is closed.
I thought 7-Eleven was 24/7, but I guess not anymore. Yeah. So yeah, no problem, man. If you got any more questions for us, keep right ahead. We're gonna get right into some depth chart breakdown. So hang around, man. You got the screen share?
Yep, I got it. All right.
All right.
So we're getting back into breaking down our roster on evaluations, and we're just doing this because if you're gonna make the defense better and improve it, you got to know what you have and where your strengths and weaknesses are. And we don't even have for sure yet who's going to be our defensive coordinator, whether Matt Eberflus is going to maintain his position or we're going to go out and get someone new. And in either case, you're going to have to evaluate your team. You really can't build a defense until you know what that defense's personality is going to be and what's going to define it, right? And that starts with your leader, right? So whoever the leader is going to determine what kind of defense we put on the field. And until we have that in place, it's really just speculation as to what we draft and what we look for in free agency. So that's why we're breaking down these. Last time we did the will linebacker and a safety. We're going to do the middle linebackers tonight, and I think Slater's got what do you got? Cornerbacks or the other safeties tonight?
So we're going to do the other safeties tonight, and then I'll break down the other safeties.
All right. So with that being said, we're going to move over and start with Logan Wilson. So we had 7 games from Logan Wilson, which totaled 532 snaps. Okay. Typically, as a Bengal, he was an every down linebacker, a defensive signal caller with all the responsibilities included, right? So his run defense performance for his time with Dallas was pretty high volume and pretty steady. You know, the numbers say he had 46 solo tackles, 15 assists, so 61 total sacks, total tackles altogether, which is pretty heavy involvement in run defense, 10 stops, making strong impacts, and 7 missed tackles, which is pretty acceptable relative to the volume of snaps that he had. I think when he's out there on run defense, he's one of the major contributors. He's kind of the engine. He consistently filled gaps, and this is all from studying film and just watching every snap that he was in. He fills interior gaps well. He's really good at reading and breaking down what's going to happen in a play and scraping over the top to get involved in the resolution. Finishes plays between the tackles pretty often. Missed tackles for him often occurred when there was high traffic, which makes sense. Second level congestion, which also makes sense when offensive linemen are getting into the second level. You know, those are big bodies to try to get around and move, and that's going to slow any linebacker strafing down every time. Slater can explain that too. He takes on blocks rather than free runs to the ball, and I think that's a struggle that a lot of linebackers have, is they engage an incoming block instead of doing what they can to avoid it. But, you know, that's live action. It's a difficult trait to master, you know, so it does take some time. So with his run defense, I give him strong and reliable as a run defender. He's not real flashy, but he's highly effective. He gets a lot of trust from his coaches, especially on run defense, to be pretty spectacular and finish well. He is what you would prototypically call a true Mike middle linebacker. You know, that's the way he performs, and that's what he does very well. Now, getting to coverage and zone, he's average. You know,
yep.
Passer rating is 120.9, which is kind of elevated. The more snaps that he's out there in zone and pass coverage, he can be exposed, especially when it's sideline to sideline. If he stays in the middle and he controls the middle, quarterbacks typically don't mess with him too much because he's very good at recognizing what's happening. But if you have to stretch him side to side, he doesn't always have the speed to get to where he needs to be. He's not a shutdown coverage linebacker, but he's very reliable, but he can be a liability if you're going pass after pass after pass. He has a high number of targets in his zones. He's asked to carry seams, hooks, and crossovers repeatedly. And sometimes, like I said earlier, that's what can get him in trouble because he doesn't have the rundown speed to catch something that's a hook to the sideline or out in the flat. And he can often need help and need some support from a cornerback or a safety to come down there. He does win coverage with route anticipation, excellent positioning, and his eyes and his discipline. You know, so he's using those tools that kind of built him as a run defender to help him in the passing game as much as possible. I think he loses when he's matched vertically and forced to open his hips against speed.
Okay.
Right. So his coverage verdict overall is pretty average. He's fine in zone heavy schemes, should not be isolated in man versus athletic tight ends like your Brock Bowers of the world. And then as a blitzer and a pressure, he has 3 total pressures for the year. Blitzing was not his primary job, but he can do it. When sent, he was typically green dog, occupy protection, and force quarterback movement rather than win clean. So not very impactful as a blitzer because speed is his weakness, but everything else that he's required to do as a linebacker, he's very capable of doing. Overall, from what I saw, I didn't really watch too much of what he did in Cincinnati. I just more focused on what he did for Dallas. I give him a run grade of B and in a zone grade of C. I think overall as a linebacker with the type of defense that we're looking to pull, I'm going to grade him as a C middle linebacker specifically because if we're going to keep Matt Eberflus, it's obvious that this is going to be a zone defense that's going to rely on pass rush to be effective. We're going to need linebackers who are good in zone, and he's more of a run defending linebacker at this point, unless he's able to get into the middle and stay there. So overall, for what he needs to be for this current scheme, I'm going to rate him as a C linebacker in the middle linebacker position.
Awesome. Real quick, I'm going to answer one of our viewers' questions.
Sure.
I'm going to put it up on the screen just to let you know. These are the current picks we hold for the draft. It can change depending on if we win this Sunday or if, the Packers, how far they go. But currently, if you're asking about the first round, we're looking at picks 14th and 21st. And then we don't own a pick until the 4th round again. So, and those 2 picks were gone. And the 2nd round pick was gone to Quinnen Williams in the trade that we made for that. And then the 3rd round pick was gone for George Pickens this previous offseason. So that's why you're going to end up with really needing to find a way to capitalize on those first round picks and then figure out what you're going to do for the late end of the draft.
Yeah. Right. And there's a couple of options for that. You can trade your 2 first round picks to get into the top 8. You could trade back and pick up 2nd and 3rd round picks if you know that who you're looking for is going to fall into the beginning of the 2nd round or even late 1st round, or you can just pick where you're at, so there's some things that they can do. It's just really going to depend on how they're assessing what their team has now, what their true needs are. And they're going to have to be as aggressive as any other team would be in free agency. We can't do it the Dallas way anymore with this defense because our depth is so lacking. If you're looking at the depth chart we're presenting and you look at the team and how it's put together and how we've acquired players, we are very deficient in our roster in depth. So it's actually good that the players that we're used to seeing play on defense this weekend are not going to play. So we can take a look at those guys that are on the bench and see what we have in this team to develop going into next year. But we have to be very aggressive in free agency. Any comments on Wilson Slater?
No, I think I think for Wilson, it's just a lack of playing. It's a lack of Matt Eberflus not utilizing Wilson and getting the snaps. We heard it this past week with Schottenheimer and them. They're like, well, we try to get each guy, 10 to 15 snap or whatever they were talking about. And they're like, well, we just totally missed out on Logan Wilson in the second half. And that's on us as a coaching staff.
That's crazy.
You're telling me that in a $1 billion company, you don't have a guy who is like, Mike into the coordinator position or even just a positional coach and is like, hey, y'all haven't played Logan Wilson in like half the 3rd quarter here, just to let you know,
Yeah. And wasn't White Cotton supposed to be taking over sideline duties while Matt Eberflus is in the booth and he was supposed to handle rotations? So is this obviously it's Matt Eberflus's defense. He's the coordinator, but White Cotton was responsible for those changes on the sidelines. So is it something that White Cotton missed and Matt Eberflus is so clueless that he didn't even notice it was missed? Because that shows a big issue if that's the case. Because everybody says he was supposed to have played in the game, but somehow, some way, they just overlooked that. That is insanity to me. This is a pro football league.
Well, according to Matt Eberflus, Kenneth Murray is, the best linebacker I've ever seen in my life.
Which is
you can
also a problem.
you can be, ranked bottom half in all linebackers in the NFL, and somehow you're the guy who gets the game ball all the time. So, yeah, I don't know. That one right there definitely gets me, and I can't wait to hear your Kenneth Murray evaluation, because I'm gonna call BS on it, because my defense coordinator says that he's the best ever. But yeah, like I don't understand that when it comes to Logan Wilson. The front office trade a 7th-round pick for him, which I thought was honestly a steal, because what do you really get out of 7th-round picks unless you get Brock Purdy, which is like 1 in a million? But you got a skill out of him, bringing him in, someone to try something different, try to get a different momentum, a different tempo going. Maybe, get Kenneth Murray off the field to figure out what you have outside of him and Jack Sanborn and all that, and that awful linebacker core that we started the year with. And they just refuse to play him. I don't get enough snaps or enough
to assess him
on the
fairly.
film to know what's going on. So I think you did the best you could. Now we can go back into the Cincinnati film, but it would be like us evaluating Trevon Diggs in 2021 and saying he's an all-pro corner today. Logan Wilson has been a very good linebacker. There's a reason why Cincinnati paid him. Now, yes, he's been on the downfall since then, but we didn't get to evaluate Dallas whether he would be great to pair up with Overshown going into the free agency, saying, hey, we got 2 competent linebackers. We just need to fill in the depth part, or now we have to figure out.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So just from my perspective, real quick, and I'll let you finish. At the end of the day, this is all just assessment. I'm just a guy with a microphone, So this is just my opinion from watching film and have a little bit of football knowledge. But at the end of the day, what you put out on the field and what we see on tape is the truth, right? So even though I think, I like Logan Wilson, I wanted him from Cincinnati even before they got him. I said, that's a linebacker right there. That's the kind of linebacker I want on the team. I called that out, and then somehow it worked out and we got him. But at the end of the day, what is out there on defense is not acceptable. We were getting cooked with anybody on the field. So I have that bias. For me personally, I'm going to give everybody a fair grade, but I'm also going to include my opinion in on this as well, and that our defense is insufficient. So unless you just were a standout on our defense, I'm giving you no bonus points. I'm taking points away because of our record and the fact that defense lost our games more often than not, right? But yeah, definitely. Logan Wilson didn't play very much in Cincinnati this year. He played even less here in Dallas, which is surprising because I think he's fully capable in there. That we have a lot of players that you have to take out for certain situations. You look at your Wilsons and Bells and stuff that have special positions and special kinds of defensive calls that they assist in. But
you just don't get a true evaluation. You don't know what you're going to get out of him next year, and whether he was worth keeping on the roster or not. Now it's a guessing game. Now
against an average tight end, I trust him. But there's not a lot of linebackers that are going to cover Brock Bowers and some of those guys who are young and fast, but against your Travis Kelce's and things like that, he's going to do what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done.
So here's a fun comment for you here. How do you feel that? I know we already talked about Trevon Diggs at the beginning.
Yeah, let's go back.
How do you feel that the Packers got Trevon Diggs? Go Pack, go! So we got a Packers fan in the chat here. For me, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it could work out for y'all. He could be, something to help y'all in the playoffs, but the moment he gets burnt or slips or anything like that, don't come crying back to us.
Yeah, not only that, it's like, he hasn't played an entire season since he's been a Cowboy, so enjoy your 4 or 5 games with him. And I feel pretty good about it because I'd like to see him play against CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. So not terribly worried at all.
But yeah, all right.
Bring him.
Yeah.
He slips a lot, So it's an easy 6.
Yeah. Oh, man, it sucks. I mean, we lost 7-11 in a year, but hey, here we are. All right. Am I going next? You want to continue on with your
go ahead and fire one off.
Well, hey, I will give you that. Mr. Renee. Y'all definitely probably need a corner going into playoffs, and so at least he can maybe provide something for y'all. So happy to see it.
To be honest, I want to see him do well. It's going to really hurt my heart if that's what happens. And he was so disgruntled with the team that he was that unhappy playing sports that he kind of self-sabotaged or whatever happened, and conveniently got picked up by where his good friend went. And if he balls out, man, more power to him. But we'll see. It's one of those things you gotta see how it plays out.
Yeah, and then 09 Max 22 says Parsons and Diggs leaving is addition by subtraction for the boys. Hey,
I can also see it that way.
Yeah,
I want guys that are bought in and want to be here. That's
Yeah.
what we need. People who are going to sell out for the team, not for themselves.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Yeah, definitely agree there. All right. Let's do it. All right. And then, yeah, exactly. He'll be good with Williams. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But all right, who I got here? We got Malik Hooker. Is that where I'm at? Oh, if you'll scroll down for me, sir. Yeah. All right. We're going to do the free safeties here, starting with Malik Hooker. All right, y'all. Let's do it this way. All right. Let me kick it off for y'all. Malik Hooker's a 9-year vet who has been around the Cowboys since 2021 when we signed him in free agency there. He worked under the new defensive coordinator at the time, Dan Quinn. Hooker, who is entering the final year of his contract in 2026, is due to make $9 million against a cap hit. Again, this is in a 2024-2025 season where all kinds of questions are in the secondary right now. Who is going to be that over the top safety? Who's going to be that guy who can, help our corners out, bail our corners out when our pass rush may not get there like as fast as a Micah Parsons would, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that we're having challenges with is our pass rush is not the same. And that's kind of what comes with trading away the all-pro Micah Parsons. And you have to find a way to substitute for that. Now, luckily we got Quinn Williams and it helps, but let me continue here. Now, let's kind of figure out, if we did a pre or post June 1st cut for the Cowboys, we would eat $2 million in dead cap, but we would save a total of $7 million. So let me kind of talk why and maybe whether looking at cutting him or trading him. Malik Hooker, according to PFF, has an overall grade for 2025 at 59.5, which makes him the 69th best free safety in the league. His season stats are 32 solo tackles with 14 receptions allowed and no interceptions. Some of the stats I found off of Sport DFW, credit to them, says even though he has been very healthy and has only missed 2 games over his tenure, this does not mean we should keep him. They also say that in the 2025 season has been his worst as a Cowboy as QBs have been attacking him. Currently, quarterbacks that throw against him have an 87.5 completion rate and a 158.3 passer rating when targeting, which is the worst since he's became a Cowboy. So ever since 2021, I'm going to put our faces here so I can talk to y'all. Ever since he's been a Cowboy in 2021, he's been just decreasing the whole time. And this has been his worst season yet, unfortunately. And yards per reception is up to 15.1 when being targeted. So with this being said, it does not help. It does not look good when he is turning 30 and he cannot keep up with speedsters. You can see with him and Donovan Wilson that we talked about in the last video, they're not like when wide receivers are running corner routes or anything that are posts where they're having to go across the field sideline to sideline, they're slacking, they're behind. Both these guys have been very good in the run game coming downhill, but that sideline to sideline, what Dallas needs, those over the top guys, it's not there right now. So it's something to keep an eye out for as Jerry Jones and Brian Schottenheimer look to retool this defense and potentially, hopefully, now I don't want to say potentially, I want to say we are getting a new defensive coordinator in the building. So I'll kind of pass it off to you here, and then I got some comments we'll go through. So how you feel about Malik Hooker?
Just being blunt and honest, I think he's aging. I think it's pretty clear that he's getting worse as the seasons go on. I think like every other position on our defensive roster, we've got to get younger and better. And I think he could end up being a casualty of that. And it's also it's running pretty rampant on the team that, when you don't have someone who is outstanding at least one or two positions on the defense, everybody can get exposed and everybody suffers from the fact that there's not strength at anything. We don't have an outstanding linebacker. We don't have an outstanding corner, and we do not have outstanding safeties, and we don't have a pass rush. So whenever that happens and a quarterback has time to sit back there for 5 seconds, there's no defense on earth that can cover 4 or 5 guys running up the field for 4 or 5 seconds, play after play after play after play. It's just impossible. So one of two things has got to happen. We've got to improve at each level on the field. We got to improve at one linebacker position, one corner position, or one safety position, all three, or we've got to have a killer pass rush to speed up the clock and put our DBs in better position to make an impact on a play.
Yeah. So 09 Max 22 says Hooker is washed, doesn't make any big plays. The boys need to change him and Wilson for next season. So they're looking.
Agree with you 100%.
Safety. And that's where mine comes into. In our last episode, we talked about Wilson and kind of just give you a quick recap. He's an upcoming free agent. He joined the Cowboys in 2019. He's fought his way up the roster, down the roster. I think he's a good in the box safety, a good run stuffing safety, someone that you can put in certain packages to stop the run. But the over the top speed, all of that, like I was just talking about, it's not there. He was never built to do it, and we were forcing him to do it, and that's why he's looked so bad. I've actually got a short and on my Twitter account showing some plays of him trying to stay with the top receivers. He just can't do it. He's
Lake
just
Neighbors,
not there.
Prime example. That's where it's going. And when you get burnt that bad consecutively like that, it's an indicator, because it didn't just happen in one game. It happened in multiple games. And that's just because there's 2 safeties and both of them are weak. So there's nobody to fall back on. There's nobody to rely on. And that's scary. If you look at the roster and if you think, if we take away Hooker and Wilson, look at the depth chart. What do we put there? It's like that all over the defense, but that's what we're up against. And that's why we're doing this.
Renee says, do you think we will trade Pickens if you can't afford him, and where will he go?
At the end of the day, they can tag Pickens for $28 million, and he can go nowhere. So
I think no matter what Dallas tags him, it just hurts you because it's a large sum of cap that could be going to other players. When you make a contract, you can dispute that in little ways or push it down the road like we do with Dak's contracts, or at the end of the season turn that money into signing bonuses to lower the cap hit down the road. But at the end of the day, we have the tag that we could use on them. It just hurts when you're trying to rebuild a defense that needs a lot of help.
Yeah, I think GP likes it here. I think he wants to be here. So I think what will end up happening is we'll restructure, probably end up restructuring Dak, CD, and Steele, push out some dead money, and then make some room for George Pickens. And I think they'll get him signed, because I think they've learned some lessons over the past couple seasons about that. And he'll be well signed before we get into week 1 next year.
And as long as Pickens does not end up in the NFC, I think we'll be okay. If he goes anywhere in the NFC East, if he ends up on the Eagles, I'm going to cry.
So. Oh, gosh. Don't say Eagles in here. Come on, man.
No, my bad. All right, next comment. The whole secondary needs help along with a better coach. Yes, that is what I'm hoping for. Mike and I were talking earlier, and he said that there's a potential chance he's got a gut feeling that, Eberflus may stick around, but I'm hoping that goes away.
Yeah, it just looks like they're leaving the door open with the comments that I'm seeing from, the front office. It's scary, Jerry. So I hope I'm wrong. I really do. Yeah. But I think they're making excuses for him, and that seems to indicate that they're going to keep him around because they don't want to switch out defensive coordinators yet again. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I'm wrong.
Hey, 09 Max, shout out to you. In the last video, when I was talking about Donovan Wilson, the first thing I said is we need safeties like Kyle Hamilton in the building, Reed Blankenship, those kind of guys who can stay over the top. Yeah, Brian Branch, those kind of guys. So shout out to you there. Wheels here says, hey, guys, who should the new DC be?
Oh, I got a lot of opinions on that. We're actually going to do a video on it, and anyway, you give them yours first.
I'm a huge fan of the Brian Flores. I haven't looked much into defensive coordinators, but other than being on social media and kind of reading into a little bit about what they've done, what they've provided, I think Brian Flores would be a really cool culture guy to bring in. Someone that Dallas usually doesn't. They don't hire those kind of top guys coming into the positions. Now, I know he'll be a favorite candidate for head coaching position, so it'd be really tough for him to turn down head coaching positions unless Jerry spends that money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if Jerry will spend that money, I think we can bring him in very easily.
Yeah, I like Glenn. Here's what I think about the Brian Flores thing. It's hard to get a lateral move when someone is on fire like they are until they've had a chance to be a head coach recently. So I don't know if he'd ever leave, but I really like the idea of like Robert Saleh.
Oh, yeah.
He's been a head coach in the past 3 years, and he's got to rebuild himself and wait for his chance to come back around. So, going under Mike Shanahan and making a successful defense, knowing that Shanahan is so good at coaching and such a great offensive mind, he's kind of in the shadows as a defensive coordinator on that staff because, he can be carried a little bit by Shanahan's greatness. So it would be awesome with Dallas struggling so much on his defense the past couple of years for Robert to come over here and show what he can do and, build a culture, get us going in the right direction, develop the depth chart a little bit, build the roster. And in 2 years, he can be a head coaching candidate again because that's what I want. I do not want Brian Flores to come here and be one and done. And then we're right back here again in 27, trying to pick up the pieces of our defense and hand it off to another guy. Let's get somebody in who can build a staff that when he leaves to be a head coach, there's somebody who knows his program and knows how to coach the way he coaches that can continue our defensive legacy on along with Schottenheimer for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
and that's what I would like to see happen. But at the end of the day, we're going to take whatever Jerry thinks is best for the team.
Yeah. Will's also added on to there. We re-signed Williams and Pickens. Sorry, a lot of Q&A going on here. I love it,
Yeah, all
guys.
good.
Renee says, do you think we will try for Max Crosby? And then the second part of that is if you have enough. But do you think Max Crosby is a potential chance for the Cowboys?
I think they're absolutely going to throw their hat in the ring for that. I think Jerry knows that the only way you can heal this defense and make a quick turnaround on it is you can keep the roster that we have because obviously a pass rush elevates that. The linebackers are going to play better. Their timings are going to get better. The cornerbacks are going to have to cover for a lot less time. And the safeties are not going to have to run 40 yards down the field because the play is going to be done before that ever happens because the pass rush is so good. So if we have the pass rush that we had this year with the defensive tackles playing in between it that we had, and we add an all-pro Max Crosby type to the mix, it is going to boost our defensive productivity by a significant margin. The way this defense is set up right now is not having success because we cannot get to the quarterback to disrupt his signal calling and his play, right? Once that becomes disruptive, that's when broken plays are going to start happening, tipped passes are going to start happening, interceptions are going to start happening because the quarterback has rushed, and we're just not getting that with what we have. So I think the first thing we need to look for is an effective pass rush.
Renee also adds on retire Jerry. I don't think that one will be happening for us, unfortunately. So I think we're stuck with Jerry for a couple more rides.
Yeah, I think Jerry's on his way to a different kind of retirement, unfortunately. So but he's going to be around for a little while.
And then last comment here, and then we'll get back to it. 09 Max 22 says they can add the title of assistant head coach to Flores along with defensive coordinator, which, hey, I will say this. They did it in the
great
past.
Idea.
If you remember back in 2020 during the COVID year, 2021, I'm sorry, Dan Quinn actually took over from McCarthy as an assistant head coach. And I'm pretty sure Al Harris was an assistant head coach there for a minute last year, talking about how, McCarthy.
Sorry, you cut out on me there for a minute. I don't know if you asked me a question.
All right, yeah. So, sorry, but last thing I said was it's very possible to give him that title, but being the guy on the field and all that is a lot different than just having the title. So we'll see what comes out of that. And then one more from Wheels. How do you grade Brian Schottenheimer in his first season?
I like Schottenheimer. I like what he's brought to the team. I like the direction he wants the team to go. I think the only knock I have on Shotty is as a coach, even though you have a defensive coordinator and Matt Eberflus over there, I did not see his impact on the defense And as the head coach, you're not just the offensive coordinator / head coach, and all you worry about is the O's. As a head coach, you have to make an impact on the D too. So I didn't see that from him, but I thought what he is going to bring to the table for Dallas is going to be in place for a significant amount of time. It's very positive. I think he's done a great job. I think our offense is very nice, got a lot of finesse. I can see where he's going with this, but he definitely needs to start making an impact on the defensive well. And whether that's through, staffing and players or just scheming, I would like to see it. Started to see a little bit of it at the end of the year, but that needs to happen much, much earlier next year so that this thing doesn't get out of control again.
Yeah, like Max is saying here, I think a lot of players do love Schottenheimer. I think he's definitely brought that player. I think he's a player-first guy. I think it's the first head coach you've had where he's truly bought into the players instead of saying like, well, I love the players, I trust the players. Like he's actually bought into these players, try to learn their story, try to connect with them in any way they can. Outside of, I guess, as we could tell, the Trevon Diggs situation. Obviously, we were not connecting there, but yeah, man, I'm excited for Schottenheimer. Just give you my quick breakdown. I think he's had I would give him a B+, but I think due to the record that you're probably going to end up with, you're probably more like at a B-, and that's just for first year expectations. Next year, if this happens again, and let's say, things go south, yeah, like it's going to start dropping to C, D, but you get a little grace in your first year, especially putting up like number one offense, right? He's a play caller, and you ended up having the number one NFL offense overall. So that was good to see.
Yeah.
Will says, do you think we need a GM? I think instead of Jerry Jones, I think you're stuck with Jerry. Unfortunately, I would love to go down the GM route, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Maybe in the next 5 years.
I would love to have a GM because it gives someone accountability. Jerry has no accountability. Jerry can't fire Jerry. He's not going to fire Jerry. So he gets to make all the decisions, and nobody has to improve or else. There's nowhere else in this. And whenever you're in a situation where there's a product to be put out there, somebody has to be responsible and accountable for the quality of it. And we're just not getting that. And I think that Jerry's starting to understand that very late in the game now. And I do feel hopeful. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, but I do feel hopeful for this next season. I think he's going to make some moves and do things that are very un-Jerry for a change. I'm really looking forward to that. And one more comment about Schottenheimer. The thing I like most about Schottenheimer is who his dad was and the principles and the ways that his dad coached. Yeah. I know his dad's very important to him, so he's going to pick up on a lot of that, and that's going to bode well for the team in the next 2 to 3 years, I think. So,
yeah, Derek, I think Mike and I are on the same board with you. The communication has been bad. We all the way back to that week 4, week 5 period, or week 4 to 8 period, we went down to one word communication. We're going to make things simple, one word calls, and obviously it never changed. You never saw that. That bond on the defense start to get better, even when they start throwing little lame excuses like one word, play calls and stuff like that. So I think he's got to go. I'm hoping that my feeling is wrong and that Eberflus doesn't somehow stay or anything like that. Like he needs to go. So I'm glad you're on board with that.
There's no defensive captain. There's no guy that's rallying in the troops on the defense and getting in their face. And that this is football. It's a violent sport,
Yeah.
Somebody's got to take that charge out there and be the field general, and we don't have one because we don't have an identity.
Yeah. Did you see today about Aikman getting hired as a consultant for Miami on their GM search? I saw some Cowboys fans saying that could be like our next GM. You know how sometimes that happens? You've had, like John Lynch for the 49ers. He's a long-time old 49er player, and now he's the GM for them. Look how good of a job he's doing. Aikman,
he's gonna be effective, man. I'm telling you right now.
I think he's definitely someone that is a culture guy. Like when Miami's searching for a GM, they're going to find the right fit because Aikman can call out maybe the BS and all of it, right? He does it to us on national TV. If you listen to Monday Night Football and they start talking about the Cowboys, he's all like, well, they don't want to get the talent in the building, or well, they don't want to, hire the coach, or well, they don't want to make, the smart play here. And I think Miami got maybe a really good
made the smart play. Yeah.
I think they did. All right, sir. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, it says it's a very wise decision. I wish we'd have done it. It's been talked about, but
But all right, you got another
Shamar
player
James.
to do here.
Yep, last one.
Let's do it. Hit us with
All
Shamar
right.
James.
All right, let's move over to our spreadsheet here. So
And
Shamar.
Go ahead.
Shamar is he's got a grade of 42.9 overall, which makes him 78 out of 87 linebackers, which is not very good. But this is a young guy moving up to our middle linebackers. He's a rookie. 21 years old, 5th-round draft pick this year. So not a lot to go on here, but his run defensive performance, from what I saw in tape, he is efficient and impactful, doing pretty good. I'm trying to run through this one pretty quick just because there's not a lot on him. But 45 solo tackles, which is actually 57th in the league, 15 assists, 15 stops, 4 missed tackles, which is the 3rd lowest. So it's excellent efficiency, missing tackles. So that's good. He has 1 forced fumble.
Yep.
All right. So what this means is Shamar is a high efficiency run defender. The low missed tackles, the low missed total tackles relative to tackle volume stands out because what this means is he finishes plays. And every time he was making a play, he was finishing all the way through, runs to the ball. Very good at diagnosing and running down the ball in every aspect of the game. So I think this kid's going to be good. I have high hopes for him from everything I've seen so far. On stops and forced fumbles, he gives real disruption to a play, and he's not just a cleanup tackle guy. He's the guy that's stopping the momentum and waiting for the cavalry if he's at a bad angle, but he does not let you go. So you're not going to break away from him once he gets to you. He's got a little bit of speed too. And for being a rookie, he's got a head between his shoulders. He wins with strong angles, great pad level on the funnel drives, and controlled aggression rather than just running recklessly with speed to try to get to the tackle. He knows when to break down and lower his shoulders and square up to make the tackle. So I think as a run defender, he's very strong, above average, reliable finisher with positive run defense, and even has a pretty elite range off of what he's shown in the time he's been on the field this year. And I think going forward, coaches will be able to trust him in early down and interior run fits. So it's pretty good. Now, coverage performance, again, much to the detriment of our defense being a zone defense, he's not a good fit for it at this level. I think his passer rating is similar to the rest of the linebackers. It's 123.7. So he's serviceable at best as a zone linebacker. Coverage results are, in my opinion, a little below average. Completions allowed underneath pretty often. Limited disruption at the point of catching the ball on a defender. So he's not able to get his hands in there and break up passes too much, but he makes an immediate tackle, but it's, usually after a first down or when they've already caught the ball. He just can't break up passes too well, but he's a rookie. So we'll give him some grace on that. He holds up best on spot drop zone. So just staying in a pocket and sitting there and waiting for something to happen and then reacted to it when he's at his best. He often took a lot of hook and curl responsibilities off of slot receivers and tight ends, as a lot of middle linebackers do. I think he struggles with carry routes vertically, just like Logan Wilson. And when he's forced to flip his hips to the outside and run down speed, he can have a little bit of trouble, not because he's slow, because he's actually pretty quick. It's because of play recognition from inexperience, in my opinion. So as a coverage linebacker, I think he's average, maybe a little bit below average. I think he needs scheme protection. He's not a matchup one-on-one downfield linebacker every play of the game. And I think if you were to pair him with a Maurice Luafau who has a good bit of speed or even an Overshone, I think it will work out well for him because he has someone who can make up for that lack of range ability in his coverage game. As a blitzer, he has 6 total pressures and 1 sacks. Good timing and feel as a blitzer. He's not explosive. but when he's in a scheme or a trick, like a delayed blitz, he's very effective. Hard to stop him when you don't know he's coming. He attacks gaps pretty well. Good green dog guy. Pressure output aligns with a linebacker who wins with anticipation, not speed. So I give him above what you would expect for a rookie linebacker as a blitzer. Overall, I'm going to give Shamar, from what he put on tape this year, a B as a grade. And I think going into next year, he's going to break out on early downs. He's going to have a lot of success on interior run fits, and like on a NASCAR package where there's select pressure packages built for him or involving him, he's going to have a lot of success there as well. So I think they're going to see a lot of growth with him next year. And I think this could be one of our future middle linebackers going forward.
Okay. I like that. I think that's a very good analysis, especially for a guy in his rookie year. Usually most rookie guys that aren't, that top of the first round picks or whatever, they end up being a lot of special teams guys and they get limited snaps. Now, luckily for him in Dallas this year, he's gotten a lot of snaps because of our linebacker injuries, one, but two, due to the bad play that we've had. I think you nailed it. I think his speed and his quickness is what's kind of getting him that advantage right now. It's all about getting that experience for him. I think it's for him, he has to find a way to just start getting in the film room more, studying his own play, studying other linebackers play, maybe guys that his future defense coordinator wants him to be like, or even guys that he looks up to. How do you become a Sean Lee, a Fred Warner? How do you become a Roquan Smith? What kind of linebacker do you want to be that fits your skill set? So right. I think that's really good.
Yeah. And I'm just grading these guys on what they put on the tape as to what they are, and I think for a young rookie who's new to the game and made the best of every opportunity he was given, and he didn't cause a bunch of problems or blow a bunch of plays. And what they put him in there to do, he did pretty well. That's the only reason he got a B grade from me, just because I think he performed pretty well for what they asked him to do versus, someone like Logan Wilson and a Kenneth Murray who were out there so much more and had a lot more opportunities and had a much bigger deficit of good to the bad that we saw on our defense this year.
Yeah. Max adds on to what you said. Shamar's got a lot of good potential. We can get rid of Murray and Sanborn, who are terrible. Totally agree. If you haven't seen on X or, any of those press conferences, Matt Eberflus thinks very highly of him, like we talked about earlier, which is amazing to think about how Kenneth Murray is somehow getting multiple game balls and all that. It's beyond me on that one.
I'm so confused, man. I've got a breakdown on him that we're going to do on the next edition of this. And I'm going to look at it again just because I'm like, did I miss something? Because, man, it is not good. So,
Max also adds on Eberflus is a moron, which
doesn't help. Yeah,
not letting Logan Wilson play one single down versus Washington.
It's a disease. The whole team's infected. Yeah, I don't know, man. We're going to see. We may have a really good team here, and we just don't know it because the coach doesn't know how to coach it. So we'll see.
All right. Wheels, I see your comment right there. I'm going to save this for the end here. I'm going to hit these two free safeties real quick so then we can kind of be done with the depth chart part, and then we'll get to a Q&A to finish off this episode. So let's do it. All right, who I got next on the free safety list here? I think it should be a Wanye Thomas, if I'm not mistaken.
Did you do Elijah Clark yet?
No, I got to do Elijah Clark. Okay, I forgot which order.
Have a grade from Lee Cooker?
It was definitely a C.
All right.
Awesome.
For you.
All right, guys. Elijah Clark. Actually, doing this one, I actually got to go back, and when studying the film, I looked at, of course, his one beautiful effort play against Philadelphia. His ability to be that kind of special teamer was awesome on that play, getting knocked down a couple times and then causing that fumble. Unfortunately, we didn't get to score on that play or score on that drive. He has been a great guy. So here we go. Elijah Clark, age 22. He's a rookie. He's going to be, not a free agent until 2027, and he's only a $1 million cap hit, right? And next year's salary cap. So he's an undrafted free agent that Dallas picked up from this past year's draft. Elijah has not gotten many snaps as a safety, but has been a great special teams guy since the start of the season. And his safety snaps, PFF grades him as a 33.8. Again, I take that with a grain of salt when it comes to some of these new guys who get very limited snaps, guys who are still trying to learn how to, be proactive on the field. Like you said, that inexperience with Shamar James and all that, just find a way to, learn and get that experience to be a great guy, especially when you're undrafted. It's a tough ask, right? He also, in those 40 snaps that he had at safety, he had a total of 7 tackles, 0 interceptions, and the 1 forced fumble on special teams play there. Coming out of college, he was used at Syracuse for zone schemes, which is probably why Dallas picked him up. It fit Matt Eberflus's, or supposedly Matt Eberflus's zone scheme that we run. That it allows him to read the field. That's what he's kind of good at, is being able to stay in that zone coverage and read the field and be able to, bounce around, passing receivers off and stuff like that. And then he's a great support guy in the run if needed. He's very good at coming from not in the box, but being at the safety level, coming downhill, kind of like if you've watched Ohio State this past week, kind of like that Caleb Downs kind of play where he can get downhill. But again, I have it here and I'm going to say it again. Shout out to him. Most Cowboys fans from this past year, they're going to remember him for that special teams play, that play with effort and then making that impact play that caused that fumble. Look for Dallas to keep him for another year. Of course, there's nothing that's going to hurt him. He's probably going to compete in camp for more snaps on defense and to maintain his special team snaps, if not get more. I think he's already on all the special teams, but
yes,
look for him to fight and compete in camp, especially with depending on what Dallas does this offseason. That's the question, is what does Dallas do this offseason? Are they going to look to bring in help, talent, draft talent at safety, or are they going to depend on guys like this? I think it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So Max adds on to that saying Elijah Clark is great on special teams. I agree, man. I think
this is the kind of guy you want on your depth chart. This is the kind of guy you want on the bench, waiting to help, because he's one of those try hard guys, man. He's going to do everything right. He's going to show up. He's going to fight every day at practice. He's going to give you 100%. As you can see, he put on a clinic on that play because he never gave up. Man, that needs to be in every coach's video clip from now till forever, of just fighting through the entire play and giving 100% until you hear the whistle blow, because you just never know what's going to happen if you don't give up. And that's the kind of guy you want on your team, no matter where he's playing, whether he's a backup guy or, he's a starter, you're going to get 100% from him. And that's good for your locker room. It's good for morale, and it's good for setting a standard if you're trying to build a culture.
Yeah. Hey, Wills, I did see your question. I'm going to finish Wanye Thomas's depth chart review, or his play review, and then we'll get to that one, since I'm just kind of trying to get through the depth chart real quick here. But we'll definitely get to talking about Dak Prescott there.
What's your grade on Clark, sir?
We're going to give him a C.
Okay.
Again, I think I would give him a B. If it was special teams play, I give him an A or a B. I'm giving him a C just due to the lack of snaps at the safety position when we're evaluating safety here.
Totally fair.
All right, Wanye Thomas. Let's finish this last one off, and then we'll get to talk about Dak Prescott there, Mr. Wills. Wanye Thomas is a six. Whoa, I definitely typed that wrong. It's not 6'11". He's 6'1". 217 pounds. 25-year-old who Dallas has had on the roster since they picked him up as an undrafted free agent in 2022. Dallas fans had hoped for a breakout year from him, but unfortunately, due to the injuries to Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, he wasn't able to get on the field as much because he had his own injuries, which was that migraine that kind of put him on IR, and then he wasn't able to really return to the field for the rest of the year. But looking at what snaps he got, Wanye received a 60 overall from PFF, which fares out pretty well for a guy who hasn't got that many snaps, over the past couple of years. With 264 snaps, he recorded 16 solo tackles and allowed 3 receptions. And within those 3 receptions, he allowed 9 yards per reception with a passer rating of 143.8. Not really the best, but again, just a guy who's trying to figure it out after being in the league for a couple of years. Thomas only played 6 games this past year before suffering that migraine, like I just said. And Thomas is someone Dallas is familiar with and has not had much of a chance to display his safety skills. I think Dallas should definitely look for him to return. He's a restricted free agent this upcoming offseason, so I definitely think Dallas should return him on a cheaper deal if they can. He definitely helps out on our special teams, and I would definitely keep looking to develop his safety skills. I think he was starting to display some very good things, but just due to that migraine, he wasn't able to finish off strong at all.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So we'll give him a C grade and go from there.
100%. You can't improve if you don't have opportunity, right? At the end of the day, nobody's just going to be good no matter when you put them in the game. You have to have some continuity. You got to get out there and get up to game speed and get to the game flow and learn where you're supposed to be. Anybody can improve, but it's your base level talent that projects how high your ceiling is, right? So I definitely agree with Slater. I think he's an excellent contributor on special teams and off the bench as a safety, or when we need, extra DBs on the field. It could turn out that one day he could start, after some more experience. But like the rest of the free safeties, I definitely think we need an impact player at one of those positions.
Yeah. All right. Let's finish it off some Q&A, man, unless you got anything else to add on when it comes to the depth chart.
Nope, good to go on depth chart. The last thing we'll end up getting to probably on the next one is we'll finish off with our Sam linebackers, Kenneth Murray and Jack Sanborn, and that'll be fine.
I'll do probably those right cornerbacks first, just because on that left cornerback, I'm going to save that one because I need to remove Trevon Diggs from our list now. Originally, when I created this, Trevon Diggs was still on the team. So
you'll cover Deron Bland, Rebel, and Kalen Carson, which is the strength of our DB room right now.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to talk about them.
Cool. What questions we got, Slater?
All right. Here's what we got. So this is from Mr. Wheels. Do you think Dak Prescott is overpaid, especially since he has taken us to he has not taken us to the Super Bowl and has only won 2 playoff games?
No, not overpaid. I think that they paid what a quarterback would make for what he's brought to the team. We have more winning seasons with him than without him. So I think his money is fair. It can be restructured. So at the end of the day, you can manipulate the numbers to make it less impactful and improve the team.
Yeah, I think Dak has earned the contract that he has. And the only reason I say that is, yes, people look at the playoff wins and not taking us to the Super Bowl or anything like that. But Jerry Jones stayed behind the 8 ball when it came to Dak Prescott's contracts twice, right? He waited until 2020, franchise tagged him, didn't pay him, and then he broke his ankle, then he paid him. Same thing here, right? We led all the way till 2024, the last year of his contract, did not pay him. And, when it's kind of different than the Micah Parsons situation, right? Because Micah Parsons, we had his 5th-year option that we could have played out, and he could have potentially earned more money, but Micah Parsons won his contract now. Dak and his agency team, they're okay with waiting up to that last year because they know that you have to give more money. Yeah. So he puts the risk in, but he also gets a lot more money on the back end. And I think that's why you ended up in that situation with Dak. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss out on, or there's something that they don't look at, is that timeline of that contract. So
you spread it all over his tenure as a Cowboy starting quarterback, all of his income, and it makes a lot more sense that way because he put a lot of risk in it and he earned it through trust and he proved it. So that's where we're at.
All right. Max here says Clark showed more heart on that one play versus Philly than Diggs showed the last few years. Hey, when you're not on the field, it's very hard to show. It's very hard to show how much heart you got in the game, right? So
that's the truth.
Yeah. So I don't mean to badmouth. I'm not trying to badmouth Diggs. It's just the truth of what happened in his story with Dallas. It's the same way with Parsons, right? When people remember Micah Parsons, they're going to remember him being the All-Pro, that guy who is, that was a really good rookie and, became the sensation. But as Dallas fans, we're going to remember him as somebody who couldn't stop the run, or somebody who, was part of those playoff games where we struggled really bad. And if you heard Jerry, or if you've seen the tweets or anything like that, Jerry traded Micah Parsons for 4 to 5 more players he could sign with that money. And that's just is what it is. Wheels here says, should we keep Kenny Clark?
Absolutely. We already have Kenny Clark. So
I think he should stay. I think it's definitely very interesting that him, Osa, and Quinnen are all going to be making 20 plus. But
that's a great segue into a question I was formulating in my head. If you want to get rid of anybody, I mean, I think it's Quinnen, Kenny,
then Osa,
maybe Osa, $20 million off the bench guy.
Yeah.
We've got defensive tackle talent. If we're safe anywhere on our defense, it's on our defensive line. You know, we've got depth there. We've got Solly. You know, we've got some guys there. So if we can afford to cut anyone anywhere, it's on the defensive tackle side. And you know, maybe you'll look at trading Osa for a known quantity or even a pick. I don't know.
Yeah, totally agree. Max says here they need to lock up Aubrey to a multi-year deal. That man is a friggin' machine. Yeah, no, totally agree. Brandon Aubrey, he is one great of a kicker. Dallas has been very blessed the past 2 years to be able to guarantee 3 points anytime they get across to 50. Had a little rough outing against Minnesota, but outside that, they need to get him on a deal ASAP. Him, George, Javonte Williams. They got a lot of things to answer this offseason.
Yeah. So what do you think, Slater, what do you think the top priority is going into next year? If you had to make 2 moves, what are the most important moves we need to make, no matter what they are?
Pickens and Aubrey.
Okay.
The only reason I say if you're thinking about Javonte Williams, I think in today's league, I love Javonte Williams. He's a super physical runner. But in today's league, when you're looking at what you can do it with any running back as long as your O-line is good.
Especially with the offensive line and Clayton Adams.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think when it comes to running back, you can make it more special of a running game when you have a special running back. And that's what Javonte Williams has brought, is that special ability to kind of, even if we lose a guard or a tackle, he still finds a way to produce. And that's what makes him special. And that's why I'm hoping he returns. But I need George Pickens back, and I need Aubrey more than I do need Javonte.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it's DC, Pickens, and then attack free agency aggressively.
Yeah. I think Derek here is referring to Parsons and Trevon Diggs. Glad they're both gone. Too much money. Totally agree.
Money's a factor. It helps us out. We can open some options up that way.
Yeah, Wheels, I'll kind of give you a sneak peek on this question here because, you know, we're really wanting to break down the depth chart first, but I'll tell you positional-wise, I'm really looking at getting something in the secondary, cornerback, safeties, kind of some top guys that are out there like Caleb Downs and stuff like that. You've also got some other guys, but, you know, we're going to get into that eventually, but I might kind of give you like, you know, some of your top prospects or maybe just even like a positional view that you're looking at for maybe what Dallas needs in the draft with those 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of one of those things where we need a pass rusher. 100%. That's got to be the first defensive priority. So assuming they go out in free agency and they sign someone who can make an impact immediately in that position for us, it brings a lot less significance to what we need to draft, right? So I'm going to assume we have a pass rusher. I think we're okay at linebacker with Overshone and Logan Wilson and the depth that we have there developing. After that, I think it's about cornerback and safety. So those would be my top 2 positions. Unless there's just an all-pro offensive tackle sitting out there at our number 1 pick, I don't see any other way to go than cornerback or safety under the assumption that we've addressed the pass rushing issue.
Yeah. And Max is kind of on board with both of us here. He said 95% of our draft picks need to be on defense. And I think that's when you kind of see when we go through this depth chart evaluation and we're talking about where these guys came from or where they were drafted, you're going to see a lot of late round picks, undrafted guys or guys who were signed after they kind of been out of their prime. And I think that's the biggest thing you're seeing on the offensive side. Think about how many years that we've drafted a offensive lineman first rounder. Hey, we've gone out and traded a 3rd round pick for George Pickens, or hey, we drafted CeeDee Lamb with our 1st overall pick. You're starting to see that's why our offense is so good, because we've drafted so well into it. And we've also gotten the free agent acquisitions to get so good there. But the defensive side is really slacked. And I don't know if it's whether, you know, maybe our scouting department or maybe our front office is not comfortable on defense, but they're really comfortable on getting offensive talent.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a significant year for free agency for the Dallas Cowboys because we only have 2 impact picks this year. Yeah. You know, and they're both 1st round. So you've either got to turn that into more picks or trade for guaranteed quantity to fill a couple spots or 1 spot on the defense. And then the rest of that is going to be acquired through what's on the roster now, which is why we're evaluating, or you're going to have to get it from free agency or not much is going to change.
Yeah. Wills, on the offensive side, I'm probably looking at most offensive linemen. Obviously, quarterback is suited. Running backs, it depends if Javonte walks and maybe Malik Davis and all them walk. If they do, then maybe looking at some young talent you can steal in the back half of the draft. But offensive line probably just for depth purposes. Guys who are projects.
I think our offensive depth chart is actually pretty good. Our wide receiver core is good.
We just need people to come back.
Yeah, 100%. We've got Phil Moffa. We're going to get a little showcase of what he can do. We signed Izzy Abadakana right at the end of the season. I think that's another guy that can run pretty well behind a good, strong, developed, well thought out offensive line and scheme. It's kind of one of those positions where, Javonte Williams brings a lot of talent to the table, and I hope he stays, and I think he will. But if not, there's a lot of guys that have pretty similar talents and capabilities to him. If not, we can find a combination of guys who can provide what he has provided. But I think at the worst case scenario, if we only get 80% of what we got in productivity from our offense next year with Dak and the boys, as long as our defense is improved, nothing's going to change as far as our ability to win games. It won't be because we are a strainer on defense.
Yeah. Max, when it comes to Phil Moffa, on the injury report from today, he was a full participant, which is making him questionable. He's been limited the past couple of days, but he is full. And Javonte Williams and Malik Davis have been ruled out. So you're probably going to see a lot of Jadon Blue and Phil Moffa, and that's some sort of evaluating what we have in the running back room behind them, just in case those two guys may walk.
There you go.
So, all right, guys. There's no more questions. If y'all have anything else, man, we appreciate y'all. We appreciate the interaction. If there's something that y'all want to add on, any players that y'all want us to potentially scout down the road, add them to our comments. Come follow us on X. We try to repost Cowboys content, put our opinions on there too. But outside that, man, just comment, like, subscribe. We appreciate y'all. And until next time, Cowboys Game Plan.